Well, you probably noticed Microsoft coming out with a 0-day patch. Did you even? Maybe you didn't hear it. You didn't notice. You don't even know what they are. Well, that was in my newsletter. We're going to talk about that right now. What is 0-day? What are these threats, and what can you do about it? 0-day patches, 0-day vulnerabilities are really a big thing. But you know what? I'm not surprised if you haven't heard of it before, because frankly, most people haven't. And the manufacturers of software don't want you to know about it. And so that's why I went into some depth on my website at craigpeterson.com. It was, of course, in my newsletter as well, in this article called Unmasking the Hidden Threats, a deep dive into 0-day cybersecurity vulnerabilities. These are the way the bad guys really get in deep into our computers and into government computers and into business computers, just all the way across the board. If you've heard me talk about software before, you know it's very complicated systems. There are a lot of things tying it all together. You know, at the hardware level, man, is there a lot down there? Long gone are the days of a discrete transistor and resistor, RTL, DTL, TTL logic, all that stuff, if you're old enough to remember any of that. But where you had a logic board that had all these transistors and things on them. Nowadays, there are computer chips, but the chips aren't just a bunch of transistors. Nowadays, they are all programmable. Your CPU, you might be running an Intel chip inside your Windows computer, but that Intel chip does not know natively how to run Intel programs written for Intel. It has to load something called microcode, which has been around a long time. IBM started doing that many decades ago. But it loads that up so that it can now interpret your software to run it as an Intel CPU. And that's true, not just with Intel, that's true with almost any CPU out there. And you can kind of optimize them. There's all kinds of stuff. We're not going to get into the different chip designs and stuff, right? I don't want you guys to just go to sleep here. But there's all kinds of software inside that chip. Don't think of the chip as just hardware. And it isn't just the CPU. We're talking about chips on your motherboard that do things like communicate over Ethernet or over Wi-Fi. I wrote some serious code to control some of those chips way back when they were, even back then, they were still a little computer in a chip. So that Ethernet chip, that chip in your cell phone that gives you Wi-Fi and cellular data, those chips are actually complete computers with their own programming in them. And yeah, it's a chip. It's got the old days of the DIP, right? A dual inline package. But it's a chip that has a computer inside, and that computer is running what? Well, software, of course. So there's software problems that can come up there. We just saw a really bad one here recently that could not possibly be fixed. Why? Well, because that chip wasn't designed to be reprogrammed. It was burned into the chip, this software. And in fact, it was a chip for a cell phone. And bad guys could hack it. It gets to be a real problem. And then let's move up from there. So you've got your motherboard, you've got your CPU, you've got your Ethernet chip, each one of those things having multiple computers inside, frankly. And you've got many other support chips that are there that are controlling the memory access, the buses. It gets crazy. Think about all of the software. And then take that now into your car. And your car is full of computers. Nowadays, I'm seeing cars with more than 200 CPUs on board. Not just a computer inside an Ethernet chip, but actual CPUs on board. Now you're starting to understand the scope of the problem. We're only talking about the software and hardware right now. But the next level up, of course, you've got an operating system. And in that operating system, at the low end, you've got device drivers. So you've got software talking to a chip that's providing Ethernet services. So it's software talking to software using hardware in between. Okay? And that's called a device driver. And then there's all kinds of logic routines depending on the operating system. There's thousands of these different logic routines. And again, we're not even to the point where you can see anything on the screen yet, because you've got a whole windowing interface that's bolted on top of that operating system. And that windowing interface is talking to GPUs. So your computer, if it has one of these graphics processing units in it, and every modern computer has it, Intel builds them into their CPU chips. Apple builds them into their CPU chips. And those graphics processing units typically contain hundreds of discrete computers. Again, all running software. A lot of software. And then those are controlling now the bits on the screen. They're moving them around. You've got your windowing interface that you can click. And isn't this wonderful? Now let's talk about the applications that are there on your computer. A lot of them. You've got a web browser, right? You might be using something like Safari on a Mac. You might be using Microsoft's latest Edge browser, Edge number 3, complete rewrite number 3 browser. That is using components from the operating system. Of course, it has its own software in there. And much of that software that's sitting in the Edge browser on your Windows computer or on Safari on your Mac, much of that software is actually written by another company. Most web browsers are based on software that Apple wrote and made available called WebKit. So you're running your browser on your Windows computer. It has underneath Edge Google Chrome, which of course is coming from Google, which has underneath it WebKit. Do you see all of these layers of software? Now, if you've ever owned anything mechanical, you know it breaks down. You got to replace things. Things tend to wear out. The same sort of stuff happens with computers. But think of the complexity of what I just described. And I haven't even gone into detail. And I'm not going to, don't worry. But I haven't even gone into detail about all of the layers of complexities inside the computer. And the computer is far, 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 far more complicated than that car that you were driving around the year 2000. Nowadays, with all the computers in them, it's a computer, right, on wheels. But it's far more complex. So what happens is the bad guys look at all of these chips, right? The Broadcom chip that's in a cable modem. That cable modem's there in your business. It's in your house. And the bad guys figure out, oh, wait a minute now, there is this chip in there. That chip is running software. In fact, some of these Ethernet chips and others are actually running a full version of Unix, of Linux, right there, just to run a communications chip. I can't blame them, right? I helped design software like that back in the early 90s, late 80s. I'm not blaming them for that. But again, it's another layer of complexity. So all of the bad guys have to do is say, oh, look at this design flaw here in the Broadcom chip. And Broadcom has to make available to any potential manufacturer that might want to buy its chip all of the specifications and make the chip available too. You can just go out and buy them. Anybody can buy them. So now the bad guys have it. All they have to do now is figure out, who's using Broadcom chip XYZ, right? Broadcom. And they say, it's this cable modem, it's that cable modem. Now we've got a real problem. And that problem is called a zero-day problem. That problem is a vulnerability that exists in some software / hardware. It's hard to tell the difference in some ways nowadays. And the bad guys know about it. The bad guys know how to exploit it. Now, it could be something as simple as the default password being admin and admin. That's pretty darn simple, right? Pretty straightforward. And admin, life goes on. It's wonderful, isn't it? But yeah, the bad guys found out that this particular chipset that's using, that's creating the web interface that you can use to configure your router or your Wi-Fi, they figured out, oh, well, that's the default password. That's the default username, and you haven't changed it. Now they're in. So at that point, the race is on. The manufacturer of the chipset has to kind of figure out, well, what can we do? Is there anything we can possibly do? Because some of these chipsets are reprogrammable. Some of them are not reprogrammable. So if it's not reprogrammable, so what do we do? How do we deal with this? And let's say it's a problem like the admin problem. Well, now they've got to go and distribute new software, new firmware, maybe new hardware, burn ROMs, and get them out to people. But most of the time, there's never a patch released. People have had to live with handsets that had the vulnerability and hope that the bad guys weren't going to attack them. It's a real problem, and it's part of this whole cyber war. When you start getting into foreign countries that want to cause damage to us, now you're really getting into something. So, patches have to happen. 0 days are going to happen, and they're going to continue to happen. Check out the article on my website, craigpeterson.com. Make sure you get on my mailing list so that you get all of this free stuff every week. craigpeterson.com/subscribe. My point was that there's a lot of software in the computer, and there's a lot of things that can go wrong because of the complexity. And that's what's driving these 0-day attacks by the bad guys. So the bottom line is that a 0-day vulnerability is a vulnerability in a computer program, in the software, in the hardware, maybe in a username or a password. How many times have we talked about that before? And it can be used by an attacker in order to get into your computer. Now, these have been used a lot over the years. There's a couple of Israeli companies that use what are called 0-day flaws. In other words, flaws that they know about that maybe the manufacturer doesn't know about or can't do anything about. They've used these flaws to get into people's devices. You might remember Khashoggi, I think was his name, and he was a journalist of sorts and was captured by the Saudis, it's alleged, and, they ended up killing him. Well, they apparently were using some of this software that was from this Israeli company. Same thing with the FBI breaking into iPhones. Again, there was a flaw that this same Israeli company was exploiting, and that's called a 0-day. There's no patch available for it. We're still on day 0 of a patch being available. So that's what it really refers to, is a number of days since the vulnerability was first discovered or first made known, and when the patch, or how long the patch has been out and how long the patch has been available. Now, these are particularly dangerous because, again, what can you do to defend yourself? And that's why I'm always telling everybody, make sure that you're not only patching your computers, but that you have a very good firewall, that your router, your Wi-Fi are also patched. Because remember, again, there's a lot of software in those things. And that software can be and sometimes is vulnerable, which is why I really recommend people use slightly higher end equipment at least. Don't use home grade equipment like you would buy at a big box retailer for your business. Very, very dangerous. In fact, I don't and has never used them even for my home, all right? So these 0-day vulnerabilities can exist in software for years before they're discovered. and they can exist for years being exploited by hackers. The hackers are really big nowadays into trying to get into your systems and staying there for a very long time and watching what you're doing and just trying to gather information on you, because sometimes the information is worth more than the extortion, but it depends on who's doing it, right? Somebody like Russia or Iran or North Korea or China, they'd rather live inside a computer system for a long time and have it available to them than just try and extort some money out of you really quick. Now, those are often what are called remote access tools, RATs, that they put onto your computer, and now they can drive your computer and do almost anything with it. And I explain that on the website if you want to delve into it some more, what RATs are and how they're used. But these vulnerabilities exist because of the complexities of the computer systems, and something I've been ranting and raving about for years, which is programmers these days, and how everything's drag and drop, right? Here you go. It's almost like you can build your own car. All you have to do is you get a frame from this company, you get the motor from that company, you get the transmission from that company, steering wheel, brakes, right, from all these different places, and you slam them together, and it's going to work because it's a transmission, and I don't need a transmission. Well, yeah, things are much more complicated than most programmers recognize. So poor code design is probably the number one reason you and I have to keep patching our computer systems. I was asked about that, in fact, just this week. Why do I have to patch it? Look at what I'm doing with in fact, he used my refrigerator as an example. And I teased him because he used the example of he's sitting in front of a refrigerator. Of course he is. But his refrigerator, if it doesn't work, if it leaks its coolant, if the compressor goes, then it gets fixed. It's under warranty. What kind of a warranty do you have on your computers, right? They're not going to send some technician out to patch up a flaw in their software or their hardware. It's all on you and your shoulders. And then the other big problem is poor quality assurance procedures. You should be, well, not you, but the manufacturers or developers of software should be testing the software to make sure everything is working the way it should work. And there's a particular type of testing that many people get wrong, and I mean really, really wrong, and that's regression testing. You got to make sure that you're not reintroducing the same problems again. So that's where, this button doesn't work, and you file a bug report and they fix the bug, and then 2 more releases later, that bug is back. Well, it's back because they didn't do regression testing and they didn't do great quality assurance. And nowadays, they're using development techniques known as scrumming. It's kind of like rugby terms, but where they are coming up with a new version of software, some companies on a daily basis. Well, we've always done that in, having development builds, not even alpha quality code, and it just builds every night to see if it'll build. And so people can check integrations with new functions or features or fixes. But for better or worse, a lot of companies are releasing those builds very, very quickly. So keep that in mind too. Most of the bad guys are going to exploit the 0 days for ransomware. They're not going to try and sit into your systems forever. Most of them, anyways. We'll see. Again, another one of my pet peeves here. If you have an Android phone and there's a 0 day that's found in your Android phone, the odds are over 80% that bug will never be fixed on your Android phone. Ever. Never, ever, ever. And the reason for that is most Android phone and tablet developers don't support the older versions of their own software. So again, a 0 day bug is found and it's being exploited in the wild. In other words, the bad guys are doing this, folks, to you and to me. and off it goes. Okay, great. Yeah, what's gonna happen? Da, 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 da. So Google then fixes it. Da, 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 da. So now it's in the base code for Android. They send it out to all of their licensees. Da, 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 da. So they all get it, and ZTE's got it now, and Huawei's got it now. But in every case, they have to go into the code that Google gave them, make changes, add their own device drivers, change the user interface to match what they're doing, maybe change some of their own software to make it work. And we're talking about typically a 6-month plus cycle to get that done, if they're even going to do it. Remember, it's about an 80% chance that they will never, ever do it for your phone. I keep advising people, don't use Android, and that's the main reason. And we could really get into this, and I've discussed it with some people before, but think about it for a minute from the manufacturer's standpoint. Let's compare it to Apple and iPhones and iPads. There are thousands of different versions of Android hardware out there, thousands. Just look at Samsung alone and how many different models they have and have had. In the Apple world, you're talking about less than 100. Much easier to maintain a closed ecosystem is what we call it. Okay, absolutely. Well, when we get back, we're going to talk about what an individual or business can do to protect yourself when it comes to these 0 days, because there are things you can do. CraigPeterson.com for more. Folks, we've established how complex computers are, how these 0-day bugs enter into our systems, and now we're going to talk about what you can do about it, because there are things you can do to protect yourself against these things. Now, of course, the first thing is something you've heard before, and that's install updates. I had a great article. In fact, it's still up on my website from a few weeks ago that I had tons of compliments on about updating your Windows computer. What are the pros? What are the cons? What you need to be aware of? But, so if you want more information on that and the risks of updating and the risks of not updating, so you can weigh it out for yourself, make sure you check out my website, or you can just email me, me@craigpeterson.com, and ask for it. But installing updates is very important because Microsoft and Apple and Google are releasing updates because they matter. Usually, if it's a major update, it's giving you new functionality, and it's not a security update. Usually, the version number will change. So, for instance, going from your Windows 10 to your Windows 11 was a pretty big change. But then you have minor versions of Windows 11. And the numbering schemes are different when it comes to Microsoft versus Apple. Apple has, of course, their OS X, their OS 10 versions, right, that ran for quite a while. They still are, frankly. Now we're up to Ventura, the 13.2.1, soon to be updated, right? Should you apply those updates, those major ones, right away? No, is my answer to that. We're still installing Windows 10. Now, we're using a long-term support version of Windows 10 that has I think it's like a decade worth of patches that are coming from Microsoft. So that's what we use for our clients because they're used to Windows 10. And in some cases, they want or need Windows 11, and we'll do that as well. But when it comes to those major version numbers, wait on them. When it comes to the minor ones, when it comes to the patches and updates, that's what this whole patch aware thing is that we've started doing to help you guys understand what you should patch, when you should patch it, what matters the most, right? So you can make the most efficient use of your time. But you should be waiting, I would say, about a week before you install them. Now, that means that you might be vulnerable to bad guys for a week. And you've got to make that decision yourself if that matters. But ultimately, Is it a good thing or is it a bad thing to do the patches? Ultimately, it's a good thing. Is it a good thing or bad thing to wait about a week? Well, it's a very good thing because particularly in the Microsoft world, Apple has really got this thing nailed. They've done a much better job with production testing, etc. But when it comes to the Microsoft world, it seems like it's every month they release a patch that breaks things, sometimes very badly for people, and then they have to come out with a patch for the patch, right? So waiting a little bit of time isn't a bad thing. And if you're running the professional versions of Microsoft Windows, you can configure how long you want it to wait before it installs a patch. The home version now, it is going to install patches whether you want it to or not, and it's going to install them certainly when you want it the least, right in the middle of something else that you're doing. But install them. It's very, very important. Now, outside your computer, we're going to talk a little bit here about the firewalls. We'll talk about the Wi-Fi and the router. Every network has a router. And that router is hooking you up to the internet somehow. Now, you might be getting it from your cell company. They're selling these little boxes now you can put into your home, and using 5G technology on the Wi-Fi, on the wireless, I should say, cellular data. It gives you a pretty decent speed. Some people now are getting the internet via satellite, places that you could never get the internet before, which is really quite incredible to think about. And many of us are getting it from the cable company. Some are still getting it from the phone company. But no matter who you get it from, there is going to be a router. And that router is your gateway to the internet, but it's also the internet's gateway to your network. That's where the problem comes in. Because the internet connecting to your network is where you can be exposed even further. I was talking earlier about how sometimes a vulnerability is as simple as a default username and password on a router. Now, you probably didn't buy your router. Most people don't. Most people don't know about it. You probably didn't buy your Wi-Fi router either. You probably got it from whomever is selling your internet service to you. Well, is it getting updated? Is it getting patched? Can it even be patched? How old is it? Are the default passwords changed on it? We were helping a client of ours that's way out west in Las Vegas. And their internet router has a default password and username on it that the internet company, and it's a very big internet company, you could probably figure it out, but the internet company has the same administrative username and password on every router on their network. That just blows my mind away, because that's a huge problem. That means that the bad guys can get onto your router, get into it, and then hop onto your network. One of the things the bad guys have been doing is they get onto your router and then they change some configurations so that if you're trying to go to bankofamerica.com, it intercepts that and sends it to badguysofamerica.com, right? Not literally, but it sends you to a website that looks like it's Bank of America, but it isn't Bank of America, in order to steal your username and password. It's a serious, serious problem. So you've got to be careful about your firewall. You've got to be careful about the router. And you've got to do some follow-up. I don't know. There's so many different devices out there. I don't know that I could particularly help you just because of the plethora of them. But what I would advise you to do is, as soon as my show's over, get a piece of paper and a pencil, get your smartphone with a camera on it, and go and take a picture of the label that's there on the equipment that you got from the cable company, whoever your internet service provider is. There should be a model number on there and a serial number. In some cases, there will even be a password, and that password varies per device, which isn't so bad, right? But do that, and then go ahead. This is something I would use Google for. Google is quite good when it comes to technical searches. I use DuckDuckGo for everything else, but for technical searches, Google has the win right now. Although, man, they are in trouble. Even Samsung is talking about removing them from their Android devices as the default search engine. That's how bad it's gotten. Moving to Bing, right? You know how bad Bing used to be. Anyways, a discussion for another day. So make sure that you find that model number, go to Google, search for the model number, and then add the word vulnerability to it, or vulnerabilities, or configuration. That's another one you might want to look for. And see if there's any known vulnerabilities with it. Check and see if you can get onto it. A lot of these internet routers that are provided or that you buy, you can connect to using a web browser, and you can change your default username and password. And boy, would I recommend you do that. That's one of the first things you should do. But you got to look it up first. In order to look it up, you got to get that model number right there on the device. Okay, so when we come back, I'll talk a little bit about Wi-Fi routers, what you might want to consider in order to be a little bit safer. So stick around. Make sure you're on my email list so you can get my Patch Aware and my newsletter, insider show notes, all for free. CraigPeterson.com/subscribe. Well, I've got another tip on VPNs, but I'm going to tell you now how to be anonymous. I mean anonymous with a capital A online. And that's important if you want to have privacy, but there's risks involved too. Most of the browsers that you use on a day-to-day basis track you. I can guarantee you that most of your internet service providers track you. There's no way around it, unfortunately. They have to do it as part of their daily business, but they also do it for a lot of other reasons, including what to sell you, how to sell you stuff, right? Et cetera, et cetera. Well, there is something out there that was developed by the United States Navy and is continued to be maintained by the Navy, and it's called the Onion Network. Now, the Onion Network ties into the Tor browser. Maybe it's the other way around. It depends how you want to look at it. The Onion Network was set up to allow dissidents in foreign countries to be able to talk to us, to talk to their CIA handlers, to organize things within the country. It's the sort of thing that I would expect that people in Ukraine are using. Military people use it. It goes on and on. One of the biggest users of this whole network is bad guys, right? It's just like the internet isn't what you might think it might be. Well, actually, more than half of the traffic on the internet right now is streaming television, which is, I think, kind of a waste of bandwidth. But that's a different story. I definitely prefer it over these silly contracts that these cable companies try and get you in. But the bad guys use this Onion Network as well, and we're going to get into that and why that's a little bit of an issue. But journalists use it, particularly in countries where they might have a problem with the government because of what they're doing, what they're researching online. Can be a real problem, really, for everybody. So they put it together, the Department of Defense, to be able to communicate with these people, let them organize so that they can, topple governments and whatever else that they want to do or need to do. So the Tor browser is a free and it's open source browser. It's based on Mozilla Firefox, which is one of the more secure browsers out there. And it lets you browse the web anonymously using this Tor network, also known as the Onion Network. We're going to start calling it Tor, T-O-R, because that's the name of the browser you use. So this is a browser you would use if you want as much anonymity as you possibly can get. I would be careful about using it in a couple of different use cases. you don't want to do your banking with it. There's a few other things because of the bad guys that are lurking in those dark alleys that are out there. So the Tor network routes your traffic through multiple nodes. Now, these nodes are volunteer-run servers that have internet access, or it might not even be like a server. It could just be someone's computer sitting in their home. And these volunteers are providing it in order, again, to allow dissidents, reporters who actually want to do their jobs, to be able to talk to people. Now, it anonymizes the data of anyone that's using the Tor browser, and it makes it really difficult to trace because what it's doing is it's hopping multiple places. Kind of think of the movies you've seen where, okay, he's going through this, he's going through that, he's going through this, guess what? You can't tell where they're going through, at least not with the level of precision you see on these movies and TV shows. It's really not there. But it's all encrypted as it goes from site to site. And when you go to a website, do you realize that you could be opening 100 different connections to that web server, because every one of the graphics has to be downloaded individually. Typically, we're not going to get into the latest technology, but just sticking with the typical, right? And the text on the page is another file it has to download. So there can be hundreds of things that it's doing and where it's going. So what the Tor network is doing now is it's taking that web page and getting all of these elements, all of these pictures, all of this text from different places in the country and potentially the world, so that no one who's monitoring on the far side, where it comes out of this effectively a VPN, no one knows who the actual originator was, which is why the bad guys really love it. And I hate it that they do this, but we got to live with them, right? They're out there. We're never going to stop them all. So it's providing a real high level of privacy to anyone who uses it, anonymity, security, as you are accessing websites and services and networks that aren't blocked from the Tor network. Because there are some, right? Banks often do this. There are known what are called entry and exit points to this Onion network, this Tor network. And so in some cases, they're blocked. I know for most of my clients, the businesses that I work with, we block the Tor browser because we don't want bad guys using it to remain anonymous if they're trying to hack in, right? Does that make sense? So the Tor browser also, because again, it's Mozilla Firefox under the hood, and they're adding some more features, but includes some additional security features. It's got a script blocker, it's got an anti-fingerprinting system, and of course support for HTTPS everywhere, which is a browser extension you should install anyways. It's called HTTPS Everywhere, and it just double checks if you're going to a non-secure website that's not encrypted, using that little lock symbol VPN I was talking about, then it'll check to see if that website actually has a secure side to it. Anti-fingerprinting is important too. The Europeans started this trend with their GDPR, their privacy regulations, and a few states have kind of done the same thing, where they're saying, well, you should have control over your information. So there now are cookie notices everywhere on the internet, and I'm sure you've noticed them, right? Only allow the necessary cookies to be able to use the website. Maybe add to that the ones that improve your speed, your download speed. Maybe allow all of them, right, so that you can be tracked. Well, there's a way around that, and that's called fingerprinting. So the way fingerprinting works is even if you have cookies turned off, they can query your browser and the information about your computer in order to identify you, fairly uniquely, in fact. most people don't have the exact same configurations of everything and plugins on their browsers, et cetera, versions of the browser software. So that's called fingerprinting, and that's how they get around the cookie thing. Again, it's just another government ploy to make you think they're trying to make you more private or safer. In reality, no, none of that's true. Even Google's come out with this thing saying, yeah, we're not going to use cookies anymore. What they're doing is they're putting you in a box. So rather than having a very explicit definition of you, what you're interested in, your age, your family, the cars you own, et cetera, what they're doing is they're grouping you with about 1,000 other people. So they're saying, yeah, we're not identifying individuals. No. What are they doing? They're putting you in a bucket, a pretty small bucket, and then that's even of more value to a lot of the advertisers. Pick the bucket. So using the Tor browser, they've got all of this anti-fingerprinting built into this. Now, when you're using the Tor browser, you can access websites also that are only available through the Onion Network. Remember, the Onion Network is a network set up by the Navy. It's for dissidents and others to be able to communicate. And you can tell if it's an Onion URL by the extension, which is .onion, right? And it's something you can look at and look for. And there's even a search engine. There's a couple, but DuckDuckGo, I'm going to check right now as we're talking, has built into it an Onion capability. Let's see, Onion Network, okay. And there it is, Tor project, Onion routing. So anyways, so you can get to these different websites. This is what is known as the dark web, the Onion Network. And it's not all dark, but there certainly is a lot of criminal activity on it. And frankly, that's where part of this warning comes from. The warning is that the Onion Network, like any other internet-based service, has some potential risk associated with it. It has similar risks to using a commercial VPN, as I talked about earlier. And the most common risk associated with using Tor and the Onion Network is that your data is sent and received over the network and can be monitored and tracked at different points by malicious actors. Now, it's hard to do that. It's designed to be very hard to do, but it can still happen. These malicious guys, the bad guys, can exploit the network. They can set up, remember, volunteer nodes, little servers on the network. They can set up malicious Tor nodes that intercept traffic, steal data potentially. Other potential risks associated with it include maybe spreading some malware and viruses through the network that can cause damage to your system. So there's no guarantees, and I hate to say this, right? But there's no guarantees that you're going to be safe, kind of no matter what you do online. But when it's about protecting your anonymity, it is all about layers. And I've got a great article about layers up on my website as well. And those layers are easily accessible to anybody through the Tor browser. It's available for free for all of your machines, Windows, Mac, Android, iOS. And if you need something a little anonymous, that's the thing to use. Now, there are 8 more tips here that I have not gone through. Plus, I've got a VPN cybersecurity cheat sheet that you can grab as well. So if you want these 10 tips to increase your anonymity and protect your privacy online, just let me know. Email me at craigpeterson.com, and Mary or Karen or I will make sure you get it. M-E, at craigpeterson.com. Take care. ChatGPT is being used to try and break into our computers. We're seeing more and more hacking going on and spear phishing. It's going to go like crazy. We'll talk a little bit about what those are, but we're going to talk about the solution right now. Well, the big problem that we have when it comes to cybersecurity and privacy nowadays really boils down to pretty much one thing. The bad guys have all of our information. They were stolen from people that we trusted. Look at the massive list of all of these hacks, including big companies, right? We're talking about companies that have information on pretty much every American, every European out there. These credit rating companies that had everything stolen from them. How many people went to prison over that? How many people really faced any serious consequences? Did the companies even face any serious consequences? You know, we are not their customers. We are their product. And their customers didn't really do much about them. You know, the banks and the credit card companies, all of these other companies that use the information that they gather, that they use to judge us and our credit worthiness. Heck, nowadays, even your insurance rates are determined partially by your credit rating from these companies. And their data was stolen from them. It was stolen. There's no excuse for that. The only thing I can think of is they're sitting around a boardroom table saying, well, let's see here. If we pull up our socks here on cybersecurity, we're going to have to rewrite some of this code so that the data is encrypted at rest. And we're going to have to clean up the way we transfer the data in our backups of the data. And we're going to have to also watch the links, maybe rewrite some of the code that is being used for what are effectively programming interfaces, right, with their customers, their real customers, not you and me. They don't care about us. We're a product, but the real customers. So that's going to cost us what, Charlie? Oh, about 25 million, 50 million, 100 million. Okay. And if all of our data is stolen, if every American loses everything to the bad guys, their social security numbers, their home addresses, the homes they own, information about the cars they own, where they work, how much they make, the phone numbers, their email addresses, their passwords. What's that going to cost us, Charlie? Oh, I don't know. Probably get a fine, maybe $10 million. I don't know. Maybe we'll have to pay some reparations. Okay, so let's say that it's an incredibly high number, an impossible number. Let's say it's $500 million, and we know that number that you gave us about, Charlie, you know, the upgrades on all of our systems. You know, that's really lowballing it. Everything takes about 3 times longer and costs about 3 times as much. So let me see here, a little bit more mental math. What's going on? Okay, so what's happening? Yeah, okay. So in other words, it's going to be 3 times cheaper for us to not do anything and to have all of the information of all of the Americans and Europeans in the hands of cyber criminals, including nation states like China and Russia. It's going to be cheaper to just let them steal all of that data, and then, you know, we'll pay the piper at the end of the dance, and then life will go on. You know, we'll probably have to clean up then, but you know, that's tomorrow's problem. We don't want to hurt our profits here this quarter by spending this money. That, to me, that just seems like the conversation that business after business had. You know, the conversations that you and I might have about cybersecurity are far, far, far different, right? The first thing is awareness about patching. Do you really follow all of this stuff? There are thousands of patches that are released every month for all kinds of software and hardware systems. Thousands of them. And awareness, which are the patches that you need to apply? Which ones are actually being exploited? Okay, so the good guys came up with this CVE system you might have heard of, and what it does is it says, okay, this particular patch, we're going to give a score from 0 to 10, and, well, it's rarely ever 0. And 10 just means, you know, it's easy to exploit, and, you know, we've got everything below that. Okay, that's all well and good. But I want you to look at one of the big companies out there that almost every one of us deals with. Its initials, I'm not going to tell you its name, but its initials are Microsoft. And Microsoft is out there making software, right? They've got some brilliant people working there. I got to tell you, I know a few of these guys, and they really are smart people. But it's a matter of prioritization. Where are they putting it, right? Microsoft is all into features, less about functionality. You might remember that Microsoft Word was terrible until you got to version 6, and that seemed to be true of pretty much every Microsoft product out there. It was all about checkboxes. Yeah, it's got this feature, it's got that feature, it's got this feature. Now, Microsoft Dynamics, all of the pain that was for so many years and so many different things, right, from Microsoft. So Microsoft was releasing patches almost daily. So what did they do? They decided they'd have Patch Tuesday, right? We're just going to release patches once a month, right? Once a month. And that's going to make everybody's life easier. Okay, so that means that these level 10 CVE vulnerabilities, in other words, the worst vulnerabilities of the worst, also known as zero-day vulnerabilities, we're going to make sure that the average person is exposed to those in business for 2 weeks, right? What's the average if it's once a month? 30 days, 15 divided by 2 is 15 days, right? Give or take. So yeah, we'd rather people not realize that we've got terrible software with major security holes in it, and we're releasing patches when necessary, and we'll just do them all on one Tuesday a month, right? That'll solve the problem. Does that really solve the problem? Obviously not, right? And so Microsoft more recently has gotten to the point where they're saying, okay, well, if it's like super duper, absolutely party pooper, it's a CVE 10 and it's being actively exploited, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, we might issue a patch here other than on Patch Tuesday. Yeah, I think that's what we'll do every once in a while. Do you see the problem? Right? So you as a small business owner or you as a home user, how do you know which ones to apply? How do you get the priority of it? Do you even have the resources to continually apply patches? Now, a couple of companies have some software, such as Google, for instance, with a Google Chrome browser. Firefox is the same way. They both have mechanisms to automatically apply patches for you. Now, you got to pay attention because the browser will sit there saying, hey, you need to apply patches, you need to apply them. But all you have to do is hit that little relaunch button to apply the patches, and the patches are done. So Microsoft has decided, okay, well, we're going to move away from this model where we charged you constantly for every new version of Office, and we're going to go to a subscription model, which is, I think, a pretty good thing. So you're paying per month. You might be paying, $15 to $25 a month per person, and that covers everything. That's your operating system, that's your Office applications, and you pay that so that you're always getting updates, upgrades, the patches, and some of these patches, again, they're not automatically installed, but they do get installed. So awareness, I think, is a huge, huge issue because it isn't just Microsoft software that you're running. Odds are excellent that you are running software from a whole bunch of different vendors. You've probably downloaded free software off of the internet and installed it and are using it. Not necessarily a bad thing, not a good thing, because some of this software might be bad stuff. Right? You've heard of malware before, of course. So there's a lot of things that you need to consider when you're looking at your software and your updates. And you want to make sure that you are not vulnerable, at least, as unvulnerable as you can be. So when the bad guys have all of your information, what do you think is going to happen next? And let me tell you, I don't think it's a good thing because it's already started happening. The bad guys have been sending what are known as phishing emails and phishing texts. And there's special names for all of these, right? There's phishing, which is an email. There's vishing, which is voicemails. There's smishing, which is your SMS, your text messages. And they're sending you messages trying to convince you that they are something not only not harmless, but something that you want to deal with, something you want to open up, right? Because it's a message from your bank saying, oh my gosh, someone's trying to break into your account right now. I need you to call this number. Or someone's trying to break into your account. I love this one. This is a text message. They're trying to break into your account right now. I'm going to send you a 6-digit number. You need to confirm it so that I can confirm it's you. And then we can shut them down. In reality, what's happening is they are sending you a message. Then they try and use your account information at that website, the bank or whomever it might be, credit card company. And then the credit card company is sending you a text message that comes in after the bad guys. And then you give the bad guys that 6-digit confirmation number. Does that sound messed up to you? Well, it's going to get a lot worse, and that's where true two-factor authentication comes into play. That's what we're going to talk about. Text messages are not enough to verify who you are. I just described one of the big problems with text messages, and we're going to talk about a couple of others here. And then what can you do? How can you absolutely protect yourself? I went into this is kind of like ChatGPT, into an API playground for it. And this is the whole thing we've been worried about, right? This is the AI that's out there. And I use this every day. And I'm writing some software, in fact, and it will be a service. We're going to make it a free service for listeners who are on my email list to get the free email and updates every week. But what I'm trying to do is put together something that lets you know what you should be patching right now. Not one of these lists that uses CVEs, says, oh, it's a level 10. Yeah, you got to do something about it. Because there are how many level 10s a month? I don't know. It's hundreds in some months. It's just crazy. But what ones do you really need to do? So I'm trying to tie in some of the AI stuff into examining things and industry statistics and stuff, which is what AI is really good at, and make that a service. So we're going to have a basic service that's going to be free for you and businesses, as well as individuals. And then we'll have some professional services too that go into a lot more detail, maybe even do the patches for you and stuff. So if you're interested in that, if you want to be involved in the kind of the alpha test of it, let me know. Just email me, me@craigpeterson.com if you'd like to be a bit of a guinea pig on that, and just to, it's just to help you find out what needs to be patched. And we're talking about really patch awareness here is really what it's all about. So I asked it, the AI, and this is the AI that backs up ChatGPT, and this particular one is called DaVinci. There are others that are out there, but I said, which cybersecurity breaches were the most harmful to small business and consumers by exposing their personal data to hackers? And this list that it came up with, the top 5, I would agree with, actually. So it did a pretty darn good job here, no question about it. And they vary from 2013 up through 2017. These are the biggest. So here we go. Equifax data breach. That's the one I've been talking about here. This massive data breach exposed the personal data of 147 million consumers and small businesses. It involved the theft of names, social security numbers, birth dates, addresses, and in some cases, driver's license numbers. By the way, I'm going to give you a site that you can go to that's absolutely free in order to find out if your information has been stolen, where it was stolen, and what exactly was stolen. I'll give you that to you. Number 2, Yahoo data breach. This exposed the personal data. I hope you're sitting down. Personal data of 3 billion consumers and small businesses. If you ever had a Yahoo account, okay? It involved the theft of names, email addresses, passwords, dates of birth, and phone numbers. The Target data breach. Target, that wonderful Target store. This breach exposed the personal data of 40 million consumers and small businesses. It involved the theft of credit and debit card numbers, expiration dates, verification codes. Home Depot data breach exposed the personal data of 56 million consumers. Anthem data breach, 79 million consumers. Social Security numbers, addresses, birth dates, employment information. What could a bad guy do with that? Huh? What could possibly go wrong, right? I've been saving, and maybe, I was thinking about putting this into my newsletter. You guys have to let me know if you think I should include it, but I've been saving the phishing emails I get every week. And I thought, it might be really kind of cool to send those phishing emails out to everybody to let you know, just a brief summary along with my weekly tip. But here's a phishing email I got this week, just so you know, if you get something like that it's a problem, right? So they can obviously send you a phishing email, but I want to take us back here to the API. We're going to do this live. I want you to see how fast this is, okay? So we're going to ask it right now. Write a cold email to someone whose account has been compromised, and we want them to confirm their ownership of the account. Okay, so I'm typing this in right now. You can get it for free. ChatGPT is available for free. If you pay $20 a month, it's unlimited use. It's really quite amazing. It's a writing assistant. So it came up with, by the way, while I was talking, a new email. It said, subject, confirm your ownership of your account. Dear name, we hope this email finds you well. We are writing. By the way, I noticed that it seems to be how they start almost all of their emails. So that might be a clue if you get an email. We hope this email finds you well, that it's written by ChatGPT. We are writing to you as we have noticed suspicious activity on your account. In order to protect your security, we need to confirm your ownership of the account. Please respond to this email with your full name, account number, and the last 4 digits of your Social Security number. This will help us to quickly verify your account and protect your security. We apologize for the inconvenience and appreciate your help in this matter. So what they do is I'm just going to use banks as an example here, but it can be almost anything out there. Your favorite website that sells shoes, or you name it. And so what they'll do is they will make a copy of that website, at least of its homepage. So that website now is got a URL, the bad guy's website, that's pretty close to the real one. So like instead of bankofamerica.com, and I'm just picking on them, okay? No particular reason. This could be any bank. It would be bankoamerica.com, just as an example. And the email they'll send out looks a lot like this one. By the way, did you notice it doesn't have any of the Nigerian characteristics? Remember the Nigerian email scams where they were sending out emails and they were poorly worded, the grammar was all wrong, right? Spelling mistakes. This is worded properly. I just ran it through another AI out there called Grammarly, which if you write anything, you should get Grammarly because it's fantastic and really helps me out too, right? And I've been speaking English for a lot of years. And Grammarly found a couple of things it thought should be expressed slightly differently. But the email is not going to raise anyone's suspicions like some of those old Nigerian scams were. So you've now got access to these people's names, their email addresses. You might know what bank they are at. So you make a mock website of the bank, you send them the email, and maybe you include a link in that email that takes them to your version of the bank's website, you being the bad guy, and then the person clicks on the email, ends up on what looks like the real bank's website. And what does that do now? Well, that real bank's website is going to steal your information because it's going to ask you to log in. And then usually what they'll do is that they'll say login failed and it'll reload the page, but it'll be the real bank page. So now they've got your name, they've got your password, up-to-date name and password, right? And with this type of technology, using these AIs, right, these assistants essentially, they can craft an email specifically for you by just gathering all of the data on you that has been stolen. And that's easy to do. It is really, really easy to do. And then send you a very convincing text message or email message, right? All of that stuff very, very quickly and easily. All right, so we're getting closer here. My email this week, you might have seen it. And the featured tip is Secure Your Digital World, the ultimate guide to two-factor and multi-factor authentication. I promise we're getting closer. We've got enough background information now. Stick around because we'll be right back, and visit me online, craigpeterson.com. We're still covering have you had your data stolen, where it was stolen. I'm going to tell you right now a website that you can go to find out if your personal information has been stolen, and it'll even monitor it for you for free. There's a guy by the name of Troy Hunt. He's down in Australia, and he started a website some years back, and the name's an interesting one. This has to do initially with gamers, online gamers, and then hackers kind of took it over, and it's the concept of being owned. You know, I own your computer now because I have complete control of it. And then that owned term kind of changed into pwned, which is, you know, I stole it from you, basically. It's now mine. I don't care if it's in your house and you're paying the electric bill. It's mining Bitcoin for me, right? And so he put together a website called haveibeenpwned.com. Now, it's not P-O-W-N-E-D. It's P-W-N-E-D. Let's see. Have I been P-O-W-N-E-D? What happens if I go to the wrong URL? Okay, good. It sent you the right one. So it's haveibeenpwned.com. Go there. If you haven't been there, you have to go there, because he has a service that's another part of this whole concept here with having multiple firewalls. It's kind of like a submarine. If one part of the submarine gets damaged, water comes in, you've got hatches in between these other sections, and they are not going to get breached, right? You just want the water in one area of a ship or a submarine, or the same thing with a firewall. So he has done some amazing yeoman's work. He wasn't paid for any of this for the longest time. Now he has a subscription service, and it's being used by 1Password, which is my favorite password manager by far. Nobody else even comes close. It's also being used by the browser guys like Google and others. So it's to be trusted. I've never met Troy Hunt myself. I've read a lot of stuff that he's written, and I've seen him speak and things. But this is the website. So it's have, H-A-V-E-I, been, B-E-E-N, pwned, P-W-N-E-D.com, or you can spell it P-O-W-N-E-D if you'd like. Go there, and you will see there on his homepage a box that you can punch in your email or your phone number. Now it says international format. So let me make sure you understand what that is. International format, if you're entering a US number, you would say +1 and then the phone number. Okay, our country code is 1 because, you know, we're the greatest, right? Well, we were first, the whole phone system, in setting up all of the standards. So we are 1. So you need to say +1, your area code, and then your phone number, whatever it might be. and then he will go ahead and look it up in his massive database. So what they've been doing is they being Troy, has been working with companies who had data stolen. And because data had been stolen, and these companies wanted to actually kind of be good about it, right? They went ahead and told Tony, here's all of the people's information that was stolen. Here's what was stolen, because you need to know that. Now, I got to tell you, most businesses, if they are hacked, have no clue what was stolen or what the bad guys did. And usually, by the way, the bad guys are living inside your network for a very, very long time. So he has that, but he also has information that has come from the dark web. And this is one case where I think the government getting involved has been a good thing. The federal government, as they find information about stolen accounts and things online, they've been sending some of that off to Troy. So I think that's fantastic. All here, all trustworthy. So if you put in your phone number here, or if you put in your email address or your password, and we'll talk about that in a second, don't worry about it. You're not giving it to the bad guys. And if you look up in what's called the URL bar, up on the top, near the top of your browser, where it has the address of the site that you're on, you'll see a little lock sign, and it says the connection is secure. If you click on it, you can look at the certificate, and you can see, okay, the certificate is from Cloudflare. They are a company that protects websites, so probably pretty darn legitimate. So I just put in one of my email addresses. This is a throwaway address I've been using for 20, 30 years. And it says, oh no, pwned. All right, so it's telling me that this email address that I've been using for almost 30 years, and it's my own private domain, actually, not almost 30 years, for 30 years, actually 31 now, has been stolen in a data breach. So it's telling me here that it's been pwned in 8 data breaches and found in 1 paste. And let's explain what those are. So the breaches are when bad guys have stolen data. It's been unintentionally exposed to the public. It's been stolen because a bad guy got onto the network, etc., etc. Okay? It's very, very good. And I notice now that Troy Hunt here on HaveIBeenPwned.com has a link now to 1Password Password Manager, which, as I said, is the only one I use. And now it looks like Troy is recommending it. Hopefully he makes a couple of bucks off of that, because, man, has he been doing yeoman's work. So it's showing me Adobe. So 153 million Adobe accounts were breached, with each containing an internal ID, username, email, encrypted password hint in plain text, and more. And it says the password cryptology was poorly done. In other words, it was crap. B2B USA business, 105 million individuals in that breach. BitTorrent, January 2016. Was hacked. BitTorrent is a protocol that I use for downloading copies of large files, particularly Unix executables, ISO images and things, and share them with people. ClearVoice surveys. This was in April 2021, and they had a publicly facing database backup that was taken and redistributed on a popular hacking forum. Isn't that something? 15 million unique email addresses, 17 million rows of data, included names, physical and IP addresses, sex, dates of birth, plain text passwords. Oh my gosh. Data enrichment exposure. This was in October 2019. 1.2 billion records. Dropbox, mid-2012. And in August 2016, they had stolen in 2012. Looks like email addresses and passwords. Verifications.io, February 2019. Right. This just goes on and on. Zynga. So let me see, that verifications was 763 million unique email addresses, dates of birth, employers, sex, geographic locations, job titles, names, phone numbers, physical addresses. and Zynga. So what I've been seeing, and by the way, in the paste, this is the undergroundrevolution.eu paste is what it was called, and it had 34,000 emails in it. So what does all of this mean? Well, all of this means that I am going to see email that's very convincing. I'm already seeing it. I'm seeing emails, these spam phishing emails, that are actually spear phishing in my email boxes that have in them my address, my name, sometimes my phone number, and they're trying to convince me of something, right? It's like, okay, your account has been compromised. That's just such a common thing for them to say, because it has been. Here's, we need you to do an update. It's account associated with, and then they give the physical street address or the P.O. box, whatever it might be, so they can steal your information. So that is haveibeenpwned.com. Check it out. Make sure you get my newsletter. It's free. The information's free. CraigPeterson.com/subscribe. And we're going to get into 2FA right now. We're going to talk about authenticators right now. Two-factor, multi-factor. What is this? You're hearing it all of the time. Some of us are being required to use it for our businesses, and you're going to see it more and more for good reason. So probably the first industries to really start using the authenticator idea was banking. That's probably number one. And it was to help secure online banking, financial transactions. And then in more recent years, we've seen other industries jumping in, including healthcare, government, technology companies like mine, all using them. Well, why do we use authenticators? You might have seen them. Some of them are these little key fobs, right, that have a 6-digit number that keeps rotating. Some of them are apps. That's what I tend to use on our phones. The list goes on of some of the things that they can do, should do, etc. But the reason you want to use an authenticator like that is because the most secure way of handling your authentication is something you know along with something you have. So the something you know would be your username or your email address and your password, right? That's something you know. But we now know that the bad guys know our usernames and passwords, right? Well, and that's part of the reason I keep saying use a different username or email address, and definitely use a different password for every website out there, right? Without a single exception. You have to do that. And the reason you have to do that is because they've got your current password. They've got your current email address. So what happens with an authenticator is, okay, you know your username and your password. The bad guy knows your username and password. But with an authenticator, they have to have that 6-digit code that changes every 30 seconds. They don't have it, right? At least you hope they don't have it. And they don't have it because if you're using an authenticator, like one of those little key fobs, or you're using an application on your phone, some of these applications are free, such as Google Authenticator. And Google Authenticator is a great little authenticator. Google Authenticator works on all kinds of websites right now. Google, of course, uses it. Dropbox, Facebook, Microsoft, most banks, they all use it. So it's free. Why aren't you using it? So what you have to do is you download it onto your smart device. It can be Android, it can be iPhone, and you download Google Authenticator absolutely free. And then what you do is you go to a website that supports Google Authenticator or compatible, right? There's lots of compatible password managers, such as 1Password, which is the one I recommend, and many others that I won't mention because I don't recommend them, okay? but they're all compatible with Google Authenticator. So you go to the website, usually you'll go into your account settings. And in your account settings where you would change your password, you set up, it's usually called 2FA, for two-factor authentication. What's the first factor? Your username and password. What's your second factor? It is the authenticator. So you set up the authenticator. It might show you a QR code that you scan with your phone. Very easy to do. I also, if you're using 1Password on your laptop or desktop computer, it shows that that website will show you that QR code, and 1Password will automatically find it on the page and set you all up. It is so easy to do nowadays. So you now have in your Google Authenticator or 1Password, you now have an account for that specific website, no matter what it is, the bank, Microsoft, Google, whatever. Okay. And so now next time you want to go log in, what's it going to do? Well, by the way, it's before you even get to the point of logging in again. Once you set it up, it's going to say, okay, so tell me what the current 6-digit code is, just to make sure everything worked right. If you don't give it the right 6-digit code, then, well, that failed and you have to try it again, right? Try to set it up again. It's not going to penalize you because you didn't have the right code, right? You don't lose access to your account. So there's not a lot to worry about here. So next time you go to log in, you are going to be able to pull up Google Authenticator and log in to that account. Now, Google Authenticator, as long as your phone's getting backed up, you're not going to lose those authentications. But there's another trick I want you guys to be aware of. And that is when you set up an authenticator, it will often give you the option of having a bunch of codes, one-time use codes generated. So it'll generate 8 or a dozen, maybe more, of these one-time codes. And the idea behind this is keep those codes, don't lose those codes. And if for some reason you lose your authenticator, the phone gets destroyed, your backup didn't work, you can still log in by using one of those one-time passwords. Now, there's a big difference between using an authenticator application that has that 6-digit code that keeps rotating every 30 seconds with a new code. Big difference between that and getting a text message. Text messages can be and are intercepted. And at the very beginning, I was talking about what? I was talking about getting a text message saying, your account has been breached. We need to confirm that this is you so that we can clean up the mess. And please respond with the 6-digit code that we send you. And then the bad guy goes and logs into Microsoft, Google, Dropbox, Box, Facebook, your bank, whatever it is. And what is that company going to do? It's going to send you a 6-digit code because now you're safe, right? And so that 6-digit code comes to your phone. And remember, you just got this other text message that said, we're trying to verify you. You need to send us this code to make sure it's you. And so people now send that 6-digit code off, and the bad guys now have your one-time password, your two-factor authentication, that 6-digit number that was texted to you, right? So be very, very careful. It could be done with something like Google Authenticator or 1Password too. They could say, we need to know your 6-digit code. But it's a little more obvious that they're trying to get your two-factor 6-digit code from you when it's an authenticator app versus it's just a text message. Then the other thing that's happened before with the text message thing is, a couple of different things. One, and this is very, very targeted, right? They got to be coming after you. They know you own a business that has a lot of cash in a bank account that they can steal, or very frequently you've got a lot of Bitcoin or some other cryptocurrency that they want to get their hands on. So what they'll do is they will either transfer your phone number to their phone, or they will try and clone your SIM. And they do that by calling up your cell phone carrier and pretending they are you. So I want to ask you a question. I want you to think about this seriously. How much information about you is up on the internet? What do you post on Facebook? What do you post on LinkedIn, Instagram, whatever it is you use online? Can the bad guys go there and figure out enough about you to fool the phone company into transferring your phone number to them? Man, this happens. I know this one guy had a lot of, it was actually Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, and he noticed that his phone just hadn't getting his normal volume of messages or phone calls. So he started looking into it, and that's exactly what had happened to him. So call your phone carrier right now and say, hey, Verizon, T-Mobile, Sprint, whoever it is you're using, I want to make sure we set up a password so that only I can call and make changes to my account. That makes sense to you? Makes a lot of sense to me. So do that as soon as the show is over, okay? Because I got some more information for you here. So that's one of the things they do, and they cannot do that. It doesn't matter. It's still my phone number all day long. You're not going to have my unique 6-digit number that changes every 30 seconds. That little key is not going to be in your hands. Now, you should do this, and I have myself done this, on every website that supports it. I did it with my buddy, and it was really kind of fun with him going through because he had a lot of resistance to doing it. And this is even after he had 2 paychecks stolen by the bad guys because of how he did things, right? With his passwords and his accounts and everything else, right? Sometimes. But anyways, it's not that hard to do. Now, my business, as you probably know by now, is cybersecurity. It's been my focus in the online world really since I got hacked on the internet back in 91, I guess it was, 92. Back then, it wasn't terribly malicious. It was called the Morris worm, and it really hurt my business there for a few days while I tried to figure out what was going on. But I've been doing this for over 30 years, and I have a free newsletter, absolutely free. It is not chock full of advertisements. It's chock full of great information, including my weekly featured tip. And it's something that you should get and you should have. But because my business is cybersecurity, I don't just use 2-factor authentication. I use multi-factor authentication. So for things that we log in at, when we have customer information, it's a username, it's a password, and with us, it's also the 1Password token, kind of like what we've just been talking about here, with using a Google Authenticator compatible device. But I also require biometrics. So it also has to do with face scan in order for us to get at any of our customers' information. So read this article. If you didn't get it, if you're not on my list yet, just email me at craigpeterson.com. Let me know what you want. Be glad to send it off, or Mary will send it. Take care. craigpeterson.com online.